We start with the group sitting around in the base, kind of bored, since there wasn't really anything that they'd needed to help with at that moment. Ship was in Gwen's lap, being petted and curled up asleep. They were all just sort of relaxing, though soon some sort of beeping sound was heard, waking up Ship in the process, and they were looking around, barking their name. Ben tells Ship to go back to sleep. Gwen asked if that was a plumber's alarm of some kind, and Ben says that it's his personal line for jobs that are outside of the plumber's regular stuff, and began to answer it. There was a man with a blue outfit with white skin on the other end of the line, introducing himself as Ambassador Zavinal of Luoda, and says that he was trying to contact Ben Tennyson for a special task. Ben says that he's there and asked what they wanted. They asked if they would have permission to speak in person, and Ben tells them to make it quick, while walking outside, where the ambassador then teleported down along with a woman holding something shaped like an egg. He asks that he delivers this treasure as a peace offering between the Luodans and the Pantophage. The woman holding the egg-shaped item pushed a button on it as something that looked sort of like an ice cream swirl then floated out, making strange but adorable squealing noises as Ship began to bark at it, and the two started playing around. Gwen couldn't help but find that cute, as Ben says that they could do that, but Ship would be tired out from that far of a trip, and they offer him one of theirs to make the journey. Kevin says that's a Tachyon 930, ugly on the outside but all engine on the inside, as he'd run inside to check it out. Ben says that they'll take care of things, and the ambassador hands Ben a credit cube for their expenses during the job, and they will pay his normal rate once completed. With a nod, they then head on off. While they were flying out in space, the Tiffin was making adorable singing sounds while playing with Ship, who was barking his name, the two having fun playing together, while Gwen says something seemed off about the ambassador, to which Ben responds that they lie all the time, part of the job description, but they could handle anything going down. The Tiffin flies by Ben while playing with Ship, and the Ultimatrix begins acting up as it zaps Ben before changing him into a humanoid tiger that ripped one of the seats out of the ship and hurled it at the wall, scaring both Ship and the Tiffin as they were both hiding away, with Kevin and Gwen trying to get him to calm down. He does end up getting his head put in a bubble and passing out from using his air. They'd used Gwen's magic to keep Ben bound because he was still in the alien form for some reason. At least he wasn't naked like in the actual show. No, he actually had something of a biker motif going on, with an open vest and something akin to jeans. Anyway, they told him that he'd become an apoplexian and that he'd nodded hearing that. Gwen tells him no hitting once she lets him loose again, and he'd nodded. Ben tried to change back, hitting the Omnitrix, but it didn't work, so he tried to yank it off of himself, which only succeeded in making him jerk himself up into the air and falling onto his back, before sitting up and asking if anyone else was hungry. With Kevin face-palming and letting out a sigh, he then went to check for anything open along the way that they could stop at. Gwen says that they should make it quick so that they could deliver the Tiffin and stop the war going down, and Ben says whatever before falling around a food robot, though Argit had overheard the conversation and snuck away to contact someone using a wrist communicator. And next up, two pale guys walked into the shop telling them not to move. They demand that they hand over the Tiffin, but Gwen tells them that that's not happening, as Ben, still in the alien tiger form known as Wrath, yells that no one has given nobody nothing, and in response, Octagon calls out 1,000 credits to anyone that joins up with them, prompting most of the aliens there to get up with their weapons drawn. Ben then proceeds to basically beat the crap out of everyone there, with Ship protecting the Tiffin, taking over one of the little cleaning robots and rolling away with the egg cradle thing that they were in to get back to their ship. This cleared up Kevin and Gwen to help fight without having to worry about the baby at the same time. Ben throws the Vreedles out of an airlock, and we then see him being pulled along by Gwen and Kevin, though he says he was just getting warmed up. We then see behind them that all of the other aliens were basically unable to stand, and they kept pulling until they'd gotten outside and headed back to the borrowed spaceship, where Ship was with the Tiffin and waiting inside, making various sounds. Gwen tells Ship good job on getting the Tiffin to safety and pats his head, and Ship barks his name happily in response, jumping up and down as they then began to take off again. Thankfully, though, they were able to make it to the Pantophage homeworld without any other incidents, and so they landed and began to go where they were supposed to meet up with the Pantophage leader. There was a large red alien who was sitting in the room on a throne that introduced themselves as Jarrett, king of the Pantophage, then asked what exactly they'd wanted in his domain, to which Kevin and tells them that they should just get this over with. And nodding, Wrath holds up the egg cradle, telling them that they brought them the tiffin, to which they thank them and taking the cradle. Jarrett then puts the tiffin on something before he then picks it up and throws it into his mouth, swallowing it whole, making everyone go wide-eyed, with Ship barking out his name. Worriedly, then starting to sound angry, changing into his spacecraft form, he then started unleashing his guns onto the pantophage, growling his name while also shooting missiles, with Gwen calling him off along with Kevin trying to do the same. Wrath demands to know what he was doing. He thought the tiffin was a peace offering, to which Jarrett says that's what a peace offering is on his planet, and he'd be happy to have the galvanic mechamorph for dessert, though Wrath stands in their way, yelling that eating babies is not cool! Getting angry and slapping the Ultimatrix symbol, changing into Ultimate Wrath, and jumped up, grabbing them by the face as they stumbled around. While the king was stumbling around, Ultimate Wrath was forcing open their mouth, and once wide enough, jumped in. Everyone stopped looking confused and surprised as Jarrett's gut began to move around violently, causing them a large amount of pain before Ultimate Wrath then busted out through their teeth and landed in front of them all, opening his hands, showing that he had the tiffin, which Ship happily barked his name about. Jarrett then got angry, running his tongue along his broken teeth, and told them that this means war. Ben tells Gwen to hold this while handing her the tiffin. Ultimate Wrath then jumped up, grabbing the pantophage king by his ears and yelling in his face, "Let me tell you something, Jarrett Pantophage! I just jumped down your throat! You start a war with the Luodans, you start a war with anyone, and I will do it again! Only this time, I will knit your intestines into a sweater!" After yelling at them, he jumped down, and Jarrett looked down, seeing Ultimate Wrath checking on both Ship and the tiffin, then looking up at the pantophage king, growling at them, making them back away. The group then left after that whole thing and went down, and we see the woman from earlier leaving a large egg-shaped ship, with the tiffin making excited chirps to see her and flying over. The woman seemed relieved to see that he was okay, saying that it was a miracle that her son was alive, revealing that she was the mother of the tiffin and queen of their people. The ambassador of Luoda says that he wanted to thank them all on behalf of all of, but was cut off by Ultimate Wrath, who asked if he knew that he was going to eat the baby. They said they weren't sure exactly, but though Ultimate Wrath holds out his claws on his wrist, making them jut out more, telling them to never talk to him again.